For lesson 1, we're going to be talking about unit rates and unit prices. So a couple of vocabulary terms that we want to go over are rate. A rate is a ratio comparing two quantities of different kinds of units. So miles and gallons, miles and hours, feet and seconds. So two different kinds of units that are being compared. A unit rate is a rate that describes how much of something there is per 1 unit. So it's the same as proportion word problems, except that you are always solving for 1 unit. And then unit price is basically the same thing as a unit rate. You're just talking about money. So it's the cost per 1 unit. So you're always solving for the cost of one item being sold. If you decide to divide instead of using a proportion, know that for unit price, money will always be on top. All right, number 1. On 9 gallons of gas, Daniel traveled 234 miles. How many miles did he travel per gallon? So first thing we're looking at is the two different units that we are comparing here and the numbers that we are given. So I always circle the numbers given to me. We're given 9, we're given 234. So 9 is talking about gallons, that's going to be the first unit I use, and 234 is talking about miles, which is going to be the second unit that I use. So gallons and miles. Then I'm going to set that up as a proportion. So here's how we do so. Anything that's related to gallons needs to go on top. Anything that's related to miles goes on the bottom. Our initial ratio is going to be this ratio on the left, and the end result is going to be on the right. So 9 is talking about gallons, so that matches up on top. 234 is talking about miles, so that goes on the bottom. There's no third number given to us, but if we look at the question, how many miles did it travel per gallon? Per gallon is telling us 1 per 1 gallon. So gallons is on top, so we're going to put 1 on top, and we're going to put a variable on the bottom. Now we have a proportion that we are going to solve. So I'm going to look at my 2 diagonals. I'm going to highlight them. I've got 1 diagonal here, and I've got 1 diagonal here. To solve a proportion, I'm going to multiply the 2 numbers that are in the same diagonal. So this diagonal has a variable. We're not talking about that one. This diagonal just has 2 numbers. So we're going to multiply 234 times 1, which is 234. And then we're going to divide by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable, which is 9. So 234 divided by 9 is 26. What were we solving for? Well, our x is on the bottom, which matches up with miles. So 26 miles per gallon. Let's do another one. Ashley bought 6 books for $32.16. Find the unit price. So, again, I'm going to set up a proportion. I'm just going to set up a blank proportion here. The 2 units, or the 2 numbers that are given to us are 6 and 32.16. The 2 units that are given to us are books and money. We've got our dollar sign there. So we are comparing books and money. So there were 6 books for $32.16. So the $32.16 matches up with the money. Finding the unit price, we want to find the price. That means the price is our unknown. That's where our variable is going to go. And a unit price means we're finding it for 1 unit, so 1 goes on top. Now we're going to solve this proportion. I'm going to highlight my 2 diagonals. multiply the two numbers in the same diagonal. So the yellow diagonal has a variable in it. We're not looking at those. We're looking at the pink one here. 3216 times 1, which is 3216. And we're going to divide by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable. So we are dividing by 6. When I divide 3216 divided by 6, I get 536. What were we solving for? X is on the bottom, so we were solving for dollars. So $5.36 per our other unit, which is books. So $5.36 per book. Let's look at one more problem that's just looking at unit rate, and then we're going to transfer these into some ratio word problems. In 30 minutes, the Australian dragonfly can travel 18 miles. What is the unit rate per minute? So again, I'm going to set up a blank proportion. I just think it's easy to do it that way. I don't have to think about what number I'm dividing. The two numbers that are given to me are 30 and 18, and those are referring to our two units, 30 minutes, which I'm going to put first, and 18 miles. So we're comparing minutes and miles. Be careful if you're abbreviating. Miles is just MI, and minutes should have the N. So 30 is talking about minutes. We put minutes on top. 18 is talking about miles. We put miles on the bottom. Equals, what is the unit rate per minute? So we're looking for a unit rate. Per minute means per 1 minute. So we put minutes on top. That means our 1 matches up with minutes, and we are solving for the miles. I'm going to highlight my two diagonals. And then let's solve. The diagonal that has two numbers in it, it happens to have been the same diagonal each time. It won't always work out that way. But I'm going to do 18 times 1, which is 18. And I'm dividing by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable, which is 30. When I divide, I should get 0.6. What were we solving for? We were solving for miles per our other unit, which is minute. So these were just unit rate problems. You don't have to solve these using a proportion, but the nice thing about using a proportion is you don't have to think about what number needs to go on top in division, especially with unit price. Because if you didn't do it, you would always have to put money on top, but in this case, I could just do it in the order that it was given. Alright, so now we're going to look at some ratio word problems given some unit rates. Cora jarred 16 liters of jam after 4 days. How many days did Cora spend making jam if she jarred 20 liters of jam? So again, setting up a blank proportion. The two numbers that are initially given to me are 16 and 4, and those are talking about our two units of liters and days. So we're comparing liters and days. So 16 is talking about liters, so that's going to go on top. 4 is talking about days, so that's going to go on the bottom. Now on the front page, we didn't have a third number given to us. In this case, we do. How many days did Cora spend making jam if she jarred 20, and I'm circling the unit that's with it, liters of jam? So liters went on top for us, so we're going to put the 20 on top to match up with liters, which means we are solving for the number of days, which makes sense because the question says how many days. Now I'm going to highlight my two diagonals so I can solve this proportion. The diagonal that has two numbers in it is this pink diagonal, so 4 times 20 is 80. The diagonal, we're going to divide by the number in the diagonal with the variable, which is 16. 80 divided by 16 is 5. What were we solving for? Days. So 5 days. Number 5, Bob read a total of 9 books over 3 months. After belonging to the book club for 5 months, how many books will Bob have read? So the two numbers that are initially given to us are 9 and 3. I'm going to set up a blank proportion and highlight the units given. We're given books and months. So we're comparing books and months. 9 is referring to books, so that's going to go on top. 3 is talking about months, so that's going to go on the bottom. And then again, we're given a third number, 5 months. So months is looking at the bottom. It's matching up there, which means we're solving for books, which makes sense. How many books is what it asks us in the question. I'm going to highlight my 2 diagonals. Finally, we got one that worked in a different way, because this time when we're looking to solve, the diagonal that has 2 numbers in it is our yellow diagonal here. So I'm going to multiply 9 times 5, which is 45. And then I'm going to divide by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable, which is 3. 45 divided by 3 is 15. What were we solving for? X matches up with books. One last problem. The Millers drove 345 miles on 4 gallons of gas. At this rate, let's make that less. Let's say 145. The Millers drove 145 miles on 4 gallons of gas. At this rate, how many miles can they drive on 6 gallons of gas? So the 2 numbers that are given to us are here. Setting up my blank proportion, highlighting my units. So we're talking about miles, and we are talking about gallons. So miles and gallons. 145 is talking about the mileage. 4 is talking about the gallons. The third number that's given to us is 6 gallons. Gallons went on the bottom, which means we are solving for miles, and that makes sense. The question says how many miles. I'm going to highlight my 2 diagonals and then solve the proportion. The diagonal that has 2 numbers in it is this one right here. So I'm going to multiply 145 times 6, which is 870. And divide by the number that's in the same diagonal as the variable. Divide by 4, and we get 217.5. What were we solving for? We were solving for miles. And that's it.